Welcome back, nerds, to another fantastic episode of Two Nerdy Dads. We are on lucky number 13. With me, as always, is Jason Applegate. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Baker's dozen, right? That's 13, isn't it?
That's another way to look at it. I do. I get told it a lot, and they always throw the next one in there. I thought it was because they liked me. What did I know?
That's all. They do like you. That's. I thought they invented the Baker's dozen for you. I thought that's where it came from.
That would be very nice. I enjoy that. Give a shout out to Mr. Steve's Donuts there back in Medina. I highly doubt it's still there, but it was a great place. Anywho,
Awesome.
Back on topic, Jason. It's been a nerdy week, so what do we have?
Well, I know that we wanted to talk about the Gotham premiere because as we were recording last week, the Gotham premiere, at least on the East Coast, was premiering. So I had to watch it on the old on-demand, which was no big deal, but got a chance to watch it and thought we'd talk about it today. I know I've got some definite opinions about it, but let me start with you. What was your overall thoughts?
Well, they had an hour, 42 minutes or 44 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? They may have even done it a little longer because I noticed that the commercials were not nearly as annoying as they typically are in a TV show. So I think they may have used that. That is a positive. Please note, I said something positive about Gotham. Other than that, it was just jam-packed with too much. It's like they didn't care about character development. It was like, let's throw it all at the wall and take that, fans. I really just, and even the introductions, like Catwoman, Wow, it was like, really? Okay, so clearly she steals. Woo, I didn't know that about her. Ooh, she stole some milk. Okay. Oh, she's going to feed a little stray cat. It's like, wow. Talk about over the top. And I don't mean to sound so harsh and negative, but it's like, after the build-up, I'm like, oh, this could be good. And I was not terribly impressed. I will say, I like Bullock. I think the actor and the character meshed very well. I think that was definitely a highlight to me. How about you?
Yeah, I hear you. I to comment on the Catwoman scene. I don't know about you, but did you feel like that guy gave up too easily?
Well, no, because it was funny. The way they cut it, I thought the people coming around the corner who turned out to be the Waynes, I thought that was the dude coming after her. You know, when they first the shadows. And then it's all of a sudden the Waynes. I'm like, oh, it's going to be way different than where I thought they were going.
Yeah. And I thought the exact same thing you did. I think they threw too much into the first episode. They were trying to cram every little villain that they could into the episode, and it was just was too much. And you're right, they didn't let it. It was like the opposite of Agents of S.h.i.E.L.D., which we're going to get to later today. The premiere of that was on Tuesday, but that one started off so slowly that you were just like, come on, let's get this thing going. I want to see some cameos. Let's get something, happen here. Reward the nerds. And this one was like too much the other way. It was just like, here, look at all these things. Look, here's Poison Ivy. Look. And it was just like, okay, like, where's the story? I thought a lot of it felt forced, too. And that's what I was afraid of when I saw that clip where it was like, Jim Gordon's like, the guy's like, who are you? Oh, I'm the new cop, Jim Gordon. And let me tell you, I'm a straight shooter, and I don't deal with any of this, beating up guys and looking the other way kind of a thing. I'm the good guy. It was just like, it just was too, I just called the writing stagnant. I just felt like it was just formulaic, and you don't get invested in any of the characters. I found Barbara to be annoying. I'm not rooting for them to really be together at all. I think you're right. The one Bullock was interesting because he's the one character that sort of has a little bit of complexity, and even his complexity is not that great. He's still pretty, much the bad cop who maybe used to be good, but now he's disillusioned, and you know what I mean? It's like, but at least that's somewhat interesting.
Yeah, and they didn't reveal too much with him. Like, they should have done more of his character development on other characters. I mean, you just said a case in point. They introduced Jim Gordon, and every cop in the precinct has a gun drawn on the guy who just took the other cop hostage. And all of a sudden, Jim Gordon comes out of nowhere and saves the day, and then people are mad at him because they didn't get to beat the crap out of the bad guy. It's like, what is going on here? But then Bullock is like, he doesn't want this Wayne cage. Then he's kind of saying, Gordon, jump off. We don't want this. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. But then the other, I don't remember their names, but the other two cops, partners who were like, oh, we'll take it, whatever. He's like, no, it's off. It's ours. And you're like, interesting. Why is the Bullock, doing the mouth face? Okay. All right. Yeah. There's something there. That they didn't just throw it in your face. They just were like, okay, we'll develop that later if it makes it that long. Yeah, there should have been more of that, I think, and the other thing that I just, and this is just me being a Batman fan, too, is I just felt like it should be more Batman Year One, where I love, really, if you read Batman Year One, it is really a Jim Gordon story. It's not a Batman story. And Jim Gordon in that, I loved that Miller made him come from Chicago to Gotham, and it was like his only choice because he had burned bridges or done something in Chicago to where he couldn't be there anymore, and it was he needed to transfer out, and he had to go to Gotham. Like that was the only place that took him. Whereas the storyline here is, he says, well, this is where the action is. And it's like, so I've come here to be a hero. And I'm just not buying it. In the movie Seven, which I love, with Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, you had that character going to New York City. I think it was New York City or was it Chicago? I don't know which. But New York City. He goes there to be a hero, and he says, hey, this is where it is. But he was from a podunk town, a tiny, real small town. And so you kind of bought it a little bit more. And I just didn't buy it with Gordon. And maybe I'm being biased because of Batman Year One, but I think it's just another example of, look, go to the source material. Like, look at what's been done before and what works and what doesn't work, and then go from there. That having been said, sorry, I did like, we talked about how they jammed too many characters in there. I did like the Edward Nygma little cameo. I thought that was the best part, maybe, of the entire episode, was his little cameo where, Bullock's, not letting him finish his little riddles and stuff. Yep. And I thought it was clever, and I love that he's helping the cops, that he's on the force, I guess, as some sort of a forensics guy or something like that. And I thought, okay, now that's clever. I like that. And subtle. I like the subtlety of that, because they just call them, what do they say, something like Bullock said, I don't want your riddles, Enigma, or something like that. I was like, cool. They didn't come out and say, oh, Edward, Fiddler, here he is, really, and it was weird. I didn't find Jada Pinkett all that annoying, which usually I do. But when she hands the bat to, Cobblepot, it's like, all right, great, cool. That's your introduction right there. Like, and then I think you were right. It was very trite. Even some of the filming, when they were bringing in witnesses to question them, and they had the light swaying back and forth to cause some kind of effect. To me, it was just annoying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are going back like film noir, trying to capture that essence of almost like. But it was, like Pulp Fiction is in the magazine, not as in the movie, and it's like, no, it's just lame and annoying. You're on video and you can tell, so you don't get the effect you want. Come on, guys, think outside the box. Yeah, it became cliche instead of artistic, and that's the worst thing you can do is become cliche, because the rest of it didn't have a film noir feel. So that one scene just sort of stuck out as this cliche, two cops, roughing up the bad guys to find the answers. And then there was just stuff that was bad writing in it too that just didn't make any sense. Like when they kill the guy who shot, emptied a whole clip at Jim Gordon, right? Empties a whole clip at the guy and attacks him with a knife, and they kill him, and they're like, we're going to get in trouble if this is all of a sudden, if this isn't the guy. It's like, come on. Like, this guy shot, I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't get in trouble if you were in, acting in self-defense. As opposed to the guy who was in the precinct who pulled out a gun, didn't shoot anybody, held a cop hostage, and they all wanted to kill him.
Yeah. So it just doesn't line up, and I think that just goes down to just bad writing. And then one other thing that just sort of is a pet peeve of mine is, why can't the Penguin be short and fat? Like, why not? Like, I mean, I thought the rest of that Penguin, I liked the look to him. I liked how he was sort of antsy, you know, and nervous. He had social issues, and he had this sort of penchant for violence, which I thought was kind of interesting and an interesting way to go with Penguin. But why can't you make him? I mean, you don't have to give him flipper hands, but make him short and fat. Like, that's, why not? I think it fits right in with the rest of it, with them calling him Penguin and him hating it. But one of my friends posted when I complained about that. Well, they said, well, there's plenty of time for him to get fat. He could just eat him to, eat his feelings. I think she said there's plenty of time for him to eat his feelings. So I'm like, well, okay, I suppose that's true. I suppose he could become fat later. So anyway, yeah, I think that we both kind of covered that. Not so hot on Gotham, but I'll give it a couple episodes, and maybe it'll come around and end up working out okay and slow down a little bit.
The other show you referenced, Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., they started off awful. Just plain awful. I'm still trying to catch up, but you wrote a great article on Nerdlocker about it, and it's from what I heard, redeemed itself.
Yeah, it really did. I think right around, and everyone I've talked to has agreed with this, right around when Thor came out, and they had they had a little bit of a tie-in there. It started to pick up, but then I think where the episodes really got good was the Captain America tie-ins, and you had all of and it finished strong. That season 2 finished really strong with all of the Hydra twists and things. And even if you saw some of them coming, I felt like you were still rewarded because they were fun. Even if they were predictable, they were still fun. And the only thing I don't like is I'm not a huge fan of Sky. Like, especially in season 1, I was just like, can she just, die? Can we not have her come back? I know that's not going to happen, but I'm just not a huge fan of her character. I'm not exactly certain why, and it probably would take too long to discuss it. But let me say that season 2 started up right where season 1 had left off. I thought the first episode was awesome. They had the Absorbing Man in the episode, so they start right away with a pretty highly recognizable character, and I thought the way they did that character was awesome. It was yes. And they didn't explain him as having, the centipede, juiced up thing. They just said he had powers. And I'm like, okay, so that's what we want to go with. Just start throwing these characters in and don't feel like you've got to explain some sort of pseudo-realistic way that they got just let them have powers, man. Just let them. And that's what and Absorbing Man, while he didn't say much, and I don't think he's that interesting of a character anyway, from what I've read of him, he sure did kick some butt, and the way he was doing some of the absorbing stuff, I thought was really pretty cool, and it highlighted the special effects that we can have in today's television shows. And I think story-wise, it still kind of kept right up. I think it's interesting that S.h.i.e.L.D.'s kind of become this sort of underground now that the whole Captain America 2 stuff happened. That they're kind of this shadows op, and I think it's interesting. And having Coulson sort of running the whole thing is also kind of interesting too. So I don't know, and it introduced all these new characters as well. One of which was played by Lucy Lawless, which I barely recognized her, but I suppose I shouldn't have been that surprised because she's kind of up there now in age. But it seems like she'll be a character for at least a decent amount of time. So I know you didn't get to see the actual episode yet, but thoughts on any of what I was talking about or sharing there? Or?
I do like how Marvel's kind of taken a risk, and they're integrating their TV stuff into the movies. Yeah. And I do think that is a risk because, especially the way it started, the TV show wasn't all that strong. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really cool way to do it. They have to be wary of what characters they're using, how they're using them, because they're somehow end up in the movie. Now they're going to have the Netflix stuff coming up here soon. So as I understand, that stuff is also going up. So I definitely like that. I haven't gotten to the good parts of S.h.i.e.L.D. I really, not that I got burned because nothing happened, but I just was so bored. I really couldn't stand the British scientists that were with the team. I really liked Ming-Na as an actress, but she kind of felt forced early on in the episode.
Yes, she does,
I think Coulson is just an amazing character. I love Clark Gregg or Greg Clark. I always get his name that's super name. But I love him as a director, but I really enjoyed him acting too. He's been a lot of fun. Really a character that was nothing, and then he turned it into something huge that now spans the Marvel universe. So I think it's fantastic. So I'm very interested to catch up and see more. I really go back to Arrow and how that started, and it really started subtle, slow, focusing on Arrow. And I don't know if it's because nobody knew who Green Arrow was, Oliver Queen, or if it was just a conscious choice. I'm not sure, but they did it right. As weird as it sounds, because I go back to, I'm almost embarrassed that it's soap opera CW, but they did it right, and it got me in right away, and I really appreciate that. I shouldn't have to. None of us should have to. Get through the first half of the season, and then after that, it's great. It's like, well, okay, you and I are parents. We don't have a lot of time. We have jobs, family. Why not sit through crappy episodes to get the good ones?
No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. In fact, my suggestion might be for some people, hey, jump in on season 2. Just start right with season 2 and start watching them live from here on out, and then you can catch up with the older episodes, and even I would, if it was on Netflix, and I'm not sure if it is, jump in, like halfway through. Don't even bother with the first few episodes because you know enough about it, and you can pick up the background story on the rest of it because it develops so slowly that you can jump right in.
Cool.
So, definitely. Out of watching the 2, which I watched them kind of back to back, I have to say that Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. right now is the better show, and maybe Gotham can catch up because I think it's got such a great potential. And I think it can be good if they just don't try to force it so much, maybe.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, the only other bit of... Oh, go ahead.
No, I said hopefully. Hopefully they can get there.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole key. Like, hopefully it gets better. The only other bit of news that we wanted to cover today, we're kind of keeping it a short one since last week we kind of went over time, and that is there were a couple of T-shirts, just saw this today, that were released, and they're DC shirts. Obviously, they're put out by another company, but they have to get the images and permission from DC to print them. Have gotten some backlash from some of the female fans out there, and some of the male fans too. For the message that they're sending. One is a picture of Superman kissing Wonder Woman, because that's kind of like the new relationship in the New 52, which, as a side note, I'm just not that huge of a fan of. But anyway, and it says "score another one for Superman" or something to that effect. And basically, the complaint is that they're portraying this female character who's iconic. I just wrote an article on how iconic she is as a female superhero, and the feminist imagery and everything associated with her. And they've reduced her into a notch on a bedpost, score, like an object that Superman has won over. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the other one that was getting some flack was a shirt that said, I'm training to be Batman's wife, and has a purple shirt. It's a girl's shirt. It has a purple bat symbol on it. But again, the complaint there is that it's suggesting that women should only aspire to be someone's wife, and particularly in this case, a rich white man's wife. I suppose you could go that far with it too. Wondering what your thoughts were. I mean, I'm a feminist, and where my opinions are going to stand on this. Wondering what other people are thinking out there. Is this a big deal? Is it not? What are your thoughts?
I just let me first say I saw this on. I always forget the exact name of the website because it's something along the lines of has DC done something stupid today, or has DC done something dumb today? It's a great website. Check it out. It's something along those lines. They do a lot of things with DC. But with this specifically, it's ridiculous. We both have daughters. We both try and really get our daughters into this nerd culture in a way that empowers them and shows them it's awesome to be a nerd. Look at these strong characters. Wonder Woman obviously being the one that you really point to. And the irony is of that cover, because it's a comic book cover they used. I can't remember what one it was. I want to say it was a Justice League, but it might have been Wonder Woman Superman comic that's out. But it's their embracing. It's an awesome cover, but you add the words, the text, and you're like, what the hell are you thinking? And again, it's not DC, but DC has to approve this stuff, so you're like, what in the hell are you thinking? Yeah. That is ridiculous. If you just had the image, no text, it's actually a beautiful shirt. But when you add that to it, it's like, yeah, you just made Wonder Woman a one-night stand when Wonder Woman could probably kick Superman's ass if she really wanted to. So that was about as dumb as you can get. And then the Batman one, it's dumb. I don't actually see that one as degrading as the Wonder Woman one, but it's like, what? Okay, so this back to the idea that, I'm going to go to college and get my MRS degree, to get married. It's like, what? What? Yeah. Come on. That's so stupid. So, but I was more frustrated than I was anything, because I'm just like, okay, you just set back all my attempts to try and get my little daughter into the nerd world.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me with the second one, the training to be Batman's wife, when I looked at that one, I thought, that's there's a lot of women's clothing out there that is, hey, pay attention to me, boys, and I'm all about the bling and materialism and all of that kind of a thing, that I was just sort of like, wow, really? Like, another one of those? I mean, I would buy it for my daughter if it said, I'm in training to be Batgirl. Like, why couldn't it say that?
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Why couldn't it say that? And it reminds me, just to kind of cut DC a little bit of a break, Marvel had some controversy with shirts as well, where there was a shirt that said, I need a hero, and it had the male Marvel heroes on it. And it's sort of like, okay, maybe not so bad. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, well, that's just, I mean, you have the song, I Need a Hero, and it's sort of retro and maybe not so bad. But what made it bad was there was another shirt that was the male side of things that said, and it had, I think, the same characters, not the same image exactly, but it obviously was complimentary, and it just said, be a hero. And it's like, well, why couldn't they do that with the girls? And I have to give DC some credit, because I've seen a lot more DC girl shirts that say things like girl power. A lot of Wonder Woman shirts where, the Rosie the Riveter, Wonder Woman that says, we can do it. Things like that, where a lot of times they have done a good job, I feel like, with T-shirts and so forth, of marketing this idea of girl power, and I haven't seen that as much with Marvel, because frankly, I mean, does Marvel have really iconic female characters? I don't know. I mean, you've got Black Widow now has sort of become popular, but nobody knew who she was before that. And I mean, who else? Like, there's no Wonder Woman for Marvel, is there? I mean, there are some if you're a huge fan of Marvel, like you're a huge fan of comics. You know them, like Spider-Woman, She-Hulk. The next article I'm going to write is on Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. But really, unless you're an X-Men fan, there isn't anybody. Because that's where I would go, is X-Men. People recognize Storm. They know Storm. They know maybe Rogue and Jean Grey. And I'm talking like people on the street. You just like show them an image and say, who is this? They might be able to point out Storm. But other than you do that with DC, they'll get Wonder Woman, and they'll get Supergirl and Batgirl. And yes, I have to admit, part of the reason they get Supergirl and Batgirl is because, they're the female versions of Batman and Superman. And that is something to be said, and a whole nother discussion, of course. But I think both Marvel and DC have got to be more conscious. And I think DC as a company, especially with their comics, need to be more conscious of women readers and try to reach out to that audience because it's such a huge potential.
So you're telling me nobody would recognize X-23? Is that what you're telling me?
My son and daughter would know it. I know that.
This was great. I made some girl's day. We were at a, I can't remember, some job fair or something like that. It was my regular job, hosting a table, and it was for their Halloween. And this woman came up, and she had claws on. And it was clearly X-23, but everybody kept calling her Wolverine. And I'm like, oh, my God, are you X-23? And she looks at me and goes, how do you know that? I'm like, please. And it was so funny. The joy on her face was just so – she was so thrilled that somebody finally called it out and she'd have to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's no doubt that that's the nerd culture, I think, is helping that. I think there's a lot more, if you don't know already, I teach high school, and there's a lot more high school, and a lot of them girls that recognize, the heroes and stuff and know what's going on. And I think things like Guardians of the Galaxy is helping with that. Like, look at all those characters. Nobody knew who they were. And now everybody knows who.
Gamora is awesome.
And Gamora, yeah, and the rest. So it is changing, and it's good to see. But every now and then we get the old foot in the mouth, and I think it's interesting to bring up and talk about. So, cool.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so should we go right to our recommendations? And I think that's what we're going to wrap up with, our nerdy recommendations and our Nerd Cave recommendations. So family recommendations and Nerd Cave recommendations. So you want to start off, or you want me to?
No, I'll go ahead and start off this time.
Go for it.
The 80s, when we grew up, what happened in the 80s? Sequels everywhere. Well, I liked a lot of the sequels, and I thought a lot of them kind of got panned for no good reason. But this weekend, as I want to do, I showed my kids a great sequel from the 80s. Barely made it in there in 1989, and it was Ghostbusters 2, which I think is highly, highly underrated because it's just as entertaining. No, it's not. It's not the originality of the first one, but Beagle, it's just great. Peter McNichol is hilarious. I love his accent. I didn't even make the correlation that that's the dude from Dragon Slayer because he had such a weird accent. You're like, I must tell you what you're doing is very bad. I want you to know that. And it's like, oh my God, that's hilarious. It's the things he's saying that's not, in proper American English. Oh, I love it. Obviously, the Ghostbusters are back. The four gentlemen are back, and just when Lewis at the end picks up a proton pack and shoots at the museum, and he thinks he saved the day. It's so cute. I love that movie. It's so awesome. And the fact that my kids who, a couple weeks ago saw the first one, now built upon that. James was glued to the TV. A little less so, but James just thought it was awesome. Thought it was so cool. So it was nice. Even though it was a sequel, it was nice to share that with them, and then the potential of maybe a third one coming out would be really exciting. So that would be my recommendation. It is on Netflix currently. I believe it's also on Crackle. If you don't know what Crackle is, crackle.com. It's a very cool. That's actually a totally free source for movies and TV. You can check it out. Like Ghostbusters 2.
Ghostbusters 2. And the other thing about the 80s, the sequels, they didn't come up with new names. It was just, you just numbered it. It was Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. It was Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman. There might be a little title after that, but it wasn't like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, which if you watch the movies, it's like, well, yeah, you should just number it because it's pretty much the first movie just again, but, with some different little tweaks here and there. And that's what it was. So, I forgot about Ghostbusters 2. I mean, not in its entirety, but I would have never thought about that. My favorite part is the dancing toaster, when the toaster's, dancing or,
heck yeah.
What they do in there. Yeah.
Heck yeah. There's a great little throwaway line, too, where Dan Aykroyd looks at Harold Ramis and is like, so you didn't have any toys growing up? He's like, we had half a Slinky, but I straightened it. And you're like, Egon, you rock. I love you, dude.
Yeah.
But it's just comedy gold. Comedy gold. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, my nerdy recommendation is just came out this last Friday, and it was the movie The Box Trolls. Excuse me. And it was that sort of clay animation Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
British, and I don't have it in front of me, who did it, but it's he's done a bunch of them, and it was really, really, really good.
Cool.
I recommend it to everybody. Go and see it. I think it's one that's going to fly under the radar. It might not be in movies very long. You can't see it, and if you miss it, get it on Blu-ray or watch it on Netflix or something, because it was so good. It just had all these great themes. The story was great. You have these box trolls, which are these characters that are misunderstood, and it's got these great themes like about misunderstanding someone because they've been portrayed as these monsters. They have characters who are, for the audience, they're the evil henchmen, but they think that they're heroes because of their perspective of things. But throughout the story, they keep questioning whether they really are or not. And so you have these henchmen that are questioning, their own morality and what they're doing is right or not. And then, of course, towards the end, and this isn't spoiling anything because it's coming, they switch sides, and they realize that, oh my gosh, we're the monsters, not these box trolls. And then the other theme that's in there, two themes. One, family oriented, is dads who are not paying attention to their children, because you have this girl and she's trying to tell her father these things, and he just is too busy to deal with her, doesn't want to listen to her, continually dismisses it. And then the other one that might definitely goes over kids' heads, but I don't know if a lot of even adult members pick up on it, was the social commentary that it has about those who are very wealthy and in power in our society, and how out of touch they are with reality and with what's good for people, and what the people need. And they're so fascinated with they're rich in their own status and their own wealth. This character in particular is like, and the setting that it's in, like cheese is their favorite thing. So they're just having meetings and they do nothing but eat cheese, and they raise all this money and then they spend the money on this huge cheese wheel instead of building a hospital for children and stuff like that. So it's really exaggerated and ridiculous, but it's definitely satire that I think is pretty fitting to today's world and how it is. And then the flip side of that too is that you have this other character who's the villain, and all he wants to be is in the elite. And that's all he cares about, so much so that this guy's allergic to cheese, but he still eats it because he thinks that is what, it means to be wealthy and powerful, and that's all that matters. And I think a lot of people are that way, that they forego morality and even common sense because of their quote-unquote dreams.
Yeah.
To be rich and wealthy and powerful, and we lose sight of what's important. And so I think it's got a lot of good messages. Probably has the best credits I've ever seen. Wow. And you don't have to stay long. There's no stinger at the end. But the credits, you have those two henchmen characters, and they basically they don't break the fourth wall, but it's self-reflective. They start to comment upon, because they're claymation, right? So they start to comment upon the universe and whether we're really in control of what we do. And they start talking about, maybe there's people that are controlling us. Hey, I just blinked. Did someone just make me do that? And of course, you're laughing because you know that they are. And then they start to pan back and show the set of the claymation set, and they even show the artist moving and the characters, and of course he's in super fast motion because of how intricate and so forth it is. But I just thought that is so clever and so brilliant and well done. I was super impressed. But hey, I'm an English teacher and I like that kind of goofy stuff. So maybe that's not you. If you just like going and being entertained, and you like laughing and ridiculousness, it's got all that too. So go for that. And hey, it's got Simon Pegg's in it, and he's one of the voices, so you can't go wrong there.
Very cool.
And Nick Frost, his buddy Nick Frost, is in it too. So lots of good acting. That's my recommendation.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How about your Nerd Cave?
My Nerd Cave, I had a little trouble kind of coming up with it this week because I like everything I watched that was or read that was, kind of adult-oriented, it didn't really impress me much this week. So I had to go back to one that I had been reading a while ago and haven't picked up again for a while, and it's and I hope I haven't already recommended this, but it's 10 Grand. I just like the storyline. It's by J. Michael Straczynski. And basically the gist is you have this guy who, it kind of reminds me of Constantine, and that's what reminded me about this comic was the Constantine TV show coming up pretty soon. And you have this guy who, like, fights the supernatural, and he's basically, for $10,000, he'll do whatever you need him to do. So he'll take on these cases. And they all, it's all kind of one big case so far that he's taken on, and it's got a supernatural twist to it, and that's about it's cool. It's interesting. I think the character is interesting. Anytime you have a sort of Faustian character, I like that in a story. Someone who's sort of sold part of their soul or something, or is somehow flawed and doomed, but still trying to do what's right. I think that's interesting. Yeah. How about you?
Very cool. This week it's the final season of a show that my wife and I have been watching for, I guess it's 8 years now, if I remember correctly. But it's called Parenthood. It's there was obviously a movie made of Parenthood way back when, and I like the idea that they made a TV show that is sort of loosely of the same story, but it's completely different. It's not necessarily a comedy, but comedic events do happen. And it's not like when it's a Nerd Cave recommendation, there's no sex, drugs, rock and roll, swearing, all that per se. It's more almost like real life being told, and it's very dramatic, very interesting. We've been watching for 8 years now. We really, really enjoy it. This is the last season. So if you have not jumped on, all the episodes are on Netflix. You can obviously watch it, binge watch it, and watch the whole thing probably by the time it's done. But it's a really good show, and I highly recommend you jump on board. He's got one of my favorite actors from TV, Peter Krause. I think he's just amazing. He was in 6 Feet Under. He was way back when in Sports. I just like him as an actor. He's really good, and obviously now in Parenthood. But he's got a great cast all around. Craig T. Nelson, who, again, I'm a huge fan of from his days on Coach and Poltergeist, obviously, if you've seen that. I would highly recommend you check it out. It's just really good. Really, the writing and the way they bring out drama and the way they bring out comedy within this family unit is just fantastic. Highly recommend it. So Parenthood.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, Parenthood. I tried to jump into that one episode, and I think it's one of those you almost have to kind of start at the beginning. Is that true? Because I jumped in one episode, and I just wasn't feeling it. And maybe it was just not a good episode to jump in on, but I just had a hard time getting into it, and I think part of it was there was so much going on that I just was like, okay, I'm trying to figure this out, but I'm not really following it. And should I be rooting for this character or not? I just don't know, and I think maybe it's because I needed to start at the beginning.
I definitely think that would help. Maybe if you jumped in at the beginning of a season, but I think it's definitely jumping out from the start because the character arcs they've done over the last 8 years is pretty impressive. Specifically, Dax Shepard, who I never really had a lot of respect for him as an actor because I really didn't pay much attention to him coming from Punk. But he has just been doing great stuff on this TV show. Really turned me around with his character arc of being just this punk. He's the youngest, the punk kid who's just the youngest of the family. Screws up all the time and kind of like, oh, that's him, okay, and to a responsible parent, adult owning his own business. And it's like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So I definitely think that is one of the drawbacks is it's very episodic, carries over storylines that happened before. You got to have to pay attention. So, yeah, I think that could probably be a big problem if you're trying to jump in somewhere.
It must have been. Well, maybe I'll give it a shot from episode 1. So,
yeah,
cool.
I recommend it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it in our shortened version today. So, hopefully you all enjoyed it and got something out of whether you're going to watch Gotham or Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and, what thoughts about the the treatment of women and T-shirts in general and DC in specific. And, it's been a good episode 13, I have to say.
I think so, too. And please keep your eyes open for Flash, for Constantine. If you have it in you to watch I Heart Zombie, because I know it's a new one coming out. But all the new shows coming out, specifically the ones that have to deal with comic books, we really want to hear what you guys have to say. So comment back, let us know.
Yeah, premiere time, baby. So there's lots to keep our eyes on. So cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jason. It's always fun to have two nerdy dads. Love it.
That's right. And we'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, check us out on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, and, of course, nerdlocker.com.
Perfect. Have a nerdy week.
Bye-bye.